ladies and gentlemen, dear guests and distinguished experts. Welcome to our panel entitled Cyber Challenges in Societal Resilience. How will we protect the front in our homes? This is a very interesting subject, and first, I want to make a short introduction, and I will present our experts. First, I will start with Ms. Maria Manuela Catrina. It's at the right of me. That is, Manuela is a deputy director at the Romanian National Directorate for Cybersecurity. I have here in my far right side, Mr. Tal Pavel is the founder of the Institute for Cyber Policy Studies from Israel. In my left side, first we have here Mr. Octavian Stancu, the head of cybersecurity services at Eviden, GDC Romania, on Atos Business. And in my far left side, we have Mr. Alexandru Eli Mărgineanu, security practice leader at Nokia Romania. Before to give my guests, my invitees the word to take the presentation, I will want to make a short introduction in our subject. So I want to start with I don't know who programming this weather. Yeah. It's first time a hacker who hack us. Yeah. I want to say something. Today, we see that we not are only citizen, we are cyber citizen. And if we imagine in a cyber world, the distance becomes closer. If we imagine that in the cyber world, the Russia, it's 1,000 kilometers away, no, it's here, at the 1 byte distance. Yeah? And each of us, maybe we're using at our homes smart watches, smart mobiles, smart TVs, smart printers, smart cars, and these could be our vulnerabilities. Yeah? Because we face with a hybrid war, in which the cyber war is very important. Yeah. So that is the main idea of this topic, to highlight the trends and the solutions in the field of social resilience and how we can protect our homes, because we become more and more exposed at risk factors. Yeah. Okay, so first I invite Ms. Manuela to start their presentation. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. And is it working now? I'm starting thanking the organizer for this amazing event and everything we heard in the morning, and thanks, Claudio, for the introduction. As a lady, and the only lady here, because so many people and so important speakers speak about hybrid threats and war and this type of things, I speak about house and homestead, because what the ladies do, take care about the house, no? So in the cybersecurity field, because you speak about social resilience, it's not different than what you do at home. You look how the landscape is looking, what are your enemies, what predators you have around, you strengthen your fences, you learn and get better in time, you protect your kids, and eventually you collaborate with your neighbors. So this will be the 5 points in that I will speak about cybersecurity today. First of all, in the Balkans, we have to do something that we do usually everywhere around. Understand the threat landscape. Is it different than in other parts of the world? Maybe yes, maybe no. I think historically, the Balkans has been the hotspot of geopolitical conflicts during time, of various nations and interests competing for control. Understanding history in this point is crucial because cyber attack may employ modern tools, but the reasons behind them, the whys, are still the same. There are still people behind them. So how the situation looks in the Balkans now? We sometimes say we had, let's say, maybe a silent and crippling digital, I wouldn't say war, but conflict in the Balkans in the last year. We had, in 2 months, I'm sure you remember last year, 4 states having strong cyber attacks. I would just mention Albania, with the whole situation with Iran. I can mention Montenegro with Cuba. I can mention Kosovo, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, Romania, not so much, but still, we still had some points. So the landscape is changing. The nature of attacks evolves. We have state-sponsored activities. We also have organized crime. We also have different other threats. Understand and develop counterattacks is important. And as such, it's also strengthening our critical infrastructure because these are our walls now. And for that, it's relevant to collaborate, not only from the governmental part, but collaborate with the private entities. And I'm so happy to have on board on this panel 2 companies, but also with the universities, with the researchers, and with the international organization and with the public, identifying, enhance resilience, develop incident responses, plans, and so on and so forth. The third thing that we should and can do is, and we do, is building cyber resilience at the national level. And here I will say, mainly for our colleagues outside Romania, a little bit of what Romania did in the last 2 years only for strengthening the cyber resilience on national level. I think sometimes we don't like to speak about state strategies and frameworks, legislative and regulatory frameworks, but they are important. So I just mention 2 or 3 points just to set the role of the National Cybersecurity Director that I represent in this ecosystem, cyber ecosystem of Romania that is strengthening because of the situation in the region, not only Balkan, but definitely the Russian aggression war in Ukraine. So we had updated a new cybersecurity strategy and the action plan in 2021. And in the same time, in the same autumn of 2021, the National Cybersecurity Directorate was established. And we finished the framework, more or less, this year in March, when the President approved the law on cybersecurity and defense. So now we know mainly who's in charge with what we have to do, and we prepared a lot, now we are going to action. 2 points about the Directorate. We function as a hub. We are designed as a hub. We have more than 1 pillars. Definitely, you have the technical pillar, national CIRT, national SOC, coordinating the incident response teams in different sectors. We are the center for crisis center in time of peace. We also are in charge with international relations and education. I'm so happy to have different collaboration. I'm looking forward to do more on Timișoara. We are a regulator, NIS authority, certification authority. We collaborate with the universities, with the private sector, with the international organizations, and with all the government, be it civil or military, in all the formats possible on project base. 2 pieces of legislation that adds on because of the international environment. It's a 5G law that was passed in Romania in June 2021, and the protection information system on public administration, as we call the Kaspersky law, in December 2022. We're still applying them. It's an interesting experiment, especially for our colleagues in the Balkans. You should look on it. We can share it, what we learned about it. 4, protecting citizens and their digital lives. because we strongly believe that the individuals that we in cybersecurity think we protect the citizens. Now you have this alerts. It's one part of it. We think that citizens are sometimes the weakest link, or it should be the strongest one. So mainly education awareness. I wouldn't quote no other examples about passwords and so on. But I want to give you another example of what in the awareness activity, you rarely can measure what you do. But we have a good example in Romania to showcase. Last year, Eurobarometer was asking all the European citizens what they believe about the consequences of the Ukrainian war. What's going to happen? Oh no, raise attacks, raise inflation. It was a list of answers. On that list, one point was the rise in cyber attacks. 5% of the European citizens expect that. On top of the European citizens in this answer were Romanians. 10% of the Romanians were aware of the rise of cyber attacks. We are not more afraid than others, but I must underline that this showcased the fact that the Romanian institutions that were involved in this, preparing the population of this, did their job. And it's something that we should prize about. Last but not least, international cooperation, information sharing, and I'm looking forward to listen to our expert what they say about the issues. I also strongly believe, when you speak about international cooperation, in exercising them. And I was speaking before the panel. We do now a lot of collaboration with universities as a directorate in doing exercise with partners in the region. We just prepared next week an exercise with our colleagues in Constanța on marine and logistics and the Black Sea area. We are looking forward to pilot an exercise on the Balkans in Timișoara next autumn, just with our partners in the region, with our counterpartners, civil one in the Balkans. Definitely because we need to learn from each other and we need to work together. And we cannot work together if you don't know each other. And I strongly believe in these partnerships. In this partnership with Timișoara, it's the best place to be in the Balkans because it's close to everybody and they understand the Balkans. So I'm really looking forward to be here again in that period. And I think we should learn in the Balkans from our cultural diversity in building our cyber resilience. Because we have a culture, a strange culture of resilience. We resist so many years in so different formats. In an open format. In the Balkans, you rarely see walls. You rarely see walls on the yards. We are quite open, more than others in a digital world. So, but knowing each other, trusting in each other helps us build this, let's say, protecting the whole. Our social cyber resilience is built on the bones of trusting and learning and knowing and understanding each other. Because then it's harder for somebody outside to break our trust. I'm stopping here because I know we have so many interesting speakers and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuela. Great speech. Yes, we talked before the panel, and yeah, the most important pillars in our cyber security and cyber world defense is education, collaboration, networking. We must communicate each other, yeah, and regulations. That is the main pillars. Yeah. Okay, so I invite Mr. Tal to start his presentation. Please, if you can fit in 10 minutes, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you hear me well? Okay, cool. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the invitation. For the organizers, West University in Timișoara and New Strategy Center. It's always honor and pleasure to be here. It's always pleasure to take part in the well-organized and highly appreciated and important event. So once again, thank you very much. When I saw the title of the panel on how we protect the front in our home, the first topic that I thought about was social engineering. Yeah, it's work. Brilliant. So I'll try to cover a bit, I have 15 minutes, so try to cover a bit social engineering in several aspects, which mean what is social engineering, definition, methods, motivations, and last, hopefully we'll have enough time, the prevention. And prevention, one of things is training, but also legislation, but mainly training, as said. Okay, let's start. What is social engineering? Social engineering basically is the clever manipulation over the human's tendency to trust, which means if I ask my students, what is social engineering? I said it, I do not hack to your computers. I do not regard social engineering as cyber attack. Why? Because I hack to your mind, not to your PCs, not to your workstation. I hack your mind. I consider social engineering as a simple scam. It's a fraud. I ask you something and you cooperated with me, okay? I didn't implant any viruses or took advantage of vulnerabilities. The only vulnerabilities that I took is the mind of such Dave. And by the way, we are all such Daves, because you can have list of technologies and antiviruses and firewalls, and nothing will do, nothing will help. If, for example, to confront phishing, no antivirus, as far as I know, will help to confront phishing attack, okay? Why it's so successful? Because there is no patch to human stupidity. Once again, social engineering is the ability to hack our mind. And every one of us, let's face it, in this way or another, we are kind of a Dave, all of us. A bit of the tactics. There is an American professor, Dr. Max Klinger, that realized that there are 6 motivations to perform cyber malicious activities or criminal activities, cyber one. I will mention here only 4. The first, of course, to gain money, financial gain, okay, to generate profit. The second one is ego. Why will I perform such cyber activities, or in our case, social engineering attack? Because I can, because I want to prove my abilities. The third one is entertainment. I want to perform social engineering attack for the lulz, because for the amusement, for the lull, okay? Because I can, because it's fun. And the last one, there is a cause. It may be political, ideological, environmental. There is a cause. What are the techniques? First of all, there is phishing, the basic one. And I tell to my students that I love this image very much. Why? Because the same as this fisherman, it may be behind phishing attack only one person. They throw wide net to the ocean, to the digital ocean. The attacker do not know who will be the fish, how many fishes, the size, the importance. The same as here, okay? And that's why organization consider phishing and social engineering as the top priority, at the top threat. And once again, phishing, there is almost no technology behind it. It's so simple. And even though 93% of organizations consider phishing as the most important, crucial threat. Another type is spear phishing, which means it's not a general phishing. Here in this case, I know exactly who am I targeting. I will create research and reconnaissance in advance. I know exactly. I will gather all the relevant intelligence to perform a very accurate phishing attack. Another example is whale fishing. Whale fishing is spear fishing against the big fishes, against the CIO, the CEO, directors, the dean, VIPs, politicians, targeting the big fish in the company, the society, or politician, whatsoever. Another type of phishing is voice phishing, what is called vishing. In this case, I'll call you. I will not send you an email. I'll perform phishing using phones, and it's happening. And my student told me that they were targeted for such activities. Another type is smishing, SMS phishing. And probably you receive such. We receive in Israel a lot, allegedly from Israeli Postal Authority, that we need to clear a package that we ordered, and we need to pay this or that sum of tax. Of course, it's totally fake. So this is smishing, SMS phishing. Another type is the Nigerian prince. Probably you heard about it, Nigerian prince, Nigerian sting is something that exists, I don't know, something like 30 years from the age of fax and mails, even before the emails. Nigerian sting, which means past few weeks I received $1.5 million from Jeff Bezos and $3.5 million from Warren Buffett fund. That's the Nigerian sting. Another type Pardon? Give me some more. I have another type is tailgating, which is physical aspect of social engineering, the ability to have access to your facilities on the back of a legitimate. It's called tailgating. And, of course, shoulder surfing. Eventually, we all perform shoulder surfing in this way or another. What are the procedures? The first thing is to gain trust, which means the first stage of social engineering is you must believe that this is a genuine message. That's the first stage. And the second one is that I want to manipulate you. I want you to feel something. After I create a feeling of that the message is genuine and legit, I want you to feel something. I want to create you something inside you. I realize that there are 7 types of feelings. That's what I'm thinking. The first is fear. Okay? In most cases, I want you to feel kinds of fear, uncertainty, doubt, anxiety, and so on and so forth, like those cases of text messages with COVID-19 related text. Another thing is curiosity. We are now in negotiation about the minutes. Curiosity, okay? Probably you know that if you'll find a flash drive, the first thing that you'll do is probably plug it in, okay? But that's the essence, that's the curiosity. Greed. Here is a case that I received on Facebook, Facebook Messenger, someone that offered me $3.2 million US, allegedly US captain living in Syria. Romance scam, okay? Another profile that I received on LinkedIn, and when I tried to find the image, I realized that it appeared in romance scam websites, as can see in here. Helpfulness. There are a lot of attempts to receive our username and password, and security questions of recovery the password. Things like, what is your first job and what is the name of a first grade teacher? When you see it on Facebook, it looks like very innocent and naive, but it's maybe your password and your security recovery question. Ignorance. I don't know what is VPN configuration, but I received this email allegedly from the IT support, and they asked me to log in and support and provide the username and my username and password. Okay, let's cooperate with it. And the last thing is ego. I received this email that announced me that I can be part of 2022, 2023 global awards and so forth. Okay, such things. The essence, the third stage, is to motivate us into to push the button, to push the link, to open the file, to do something, and then close the interaction and leverage the information, which means use the information, username, password, credit card details, bank details that I received from you. That's leverage the information. And the last thing is prevention. Okay, that's the most important thing, how to prevent. How to prevent? The first thing is training, as we said. We need to train, to educate, to raise the awareness of everyone. And that's an important thing, because social engineering may and do affect everyone. It's not related only to them, the IT department. I'm the financial department. It's not related to me, DDoS attack or vulnerabilities. But here in this case of social engineering attack, it relates to everyone, because every one of us, we are digital citizens, and we may be target for such an attacks. Another aspect is...
Sorry, Tal, if you can conclude, because we are very...
Half a minute. Half a minute.
Okay.
Half a minute. The last thing is, another thing is to be suspicious for email that we receive. Update software, two-factor authentication. It's very important to perform two-factor authentication. Manage password management to do it correctly. Intelligence gathering, which means what's happening now, what are the threats. And three last things. Three very important lessons. The first is, as Mr. Peter Drucker said, culture is strategy for breakfast. It's very important, the strategy, but the organizational culture is much more important. The second thing, as Bruce Schneier said, security is a process. It's not a product. It's an ongoing and long process. And the last thing is that the keyboard is the best offensive weapon. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tal. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Have an interesting presentation. Yeah. But fisherman becomes today. Instead of fishing fish, they fish our passwords. Yeah. Okay. I will let Octavian Stancu to make his presentation. Please, Octavian.
Okay. Hello. It's glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So, for the sake of time, I'll try to dive right into the point and be efficient. Okay, it works. So, preparing for this topic, for this encounter, I was reading some very nice articles, and one approach on how do we see cyber challenge in society if we consider this triplet as a whole of our society. So on one hand we have our economy, on the other hand we have our population, and healthy population. By health I don't mean physical, I mean physical and all other forms. And of course we have the information technology. So what we've seen, especially after COVID, now with the war, that the IT itself is becoming a foundation in our society. So they are all interlinked. The better the economy is, the more wealth to the people, the more finance to the IT. The healthier the population, the more workers for the economy and more investment, deployment and operation of the IT. And of course, IT itself is it's an enabler of both. So having that in mind, cybersecurity is a key, if not the most important one, in the cyber resilience aspect of technology. So until and unless we can make our information systems resist cyber attacks, we cannot consider the society supported by this IT to be resilient. Oh. Like, for example, this technology, right?
Perhaps it's closed? No, it's not closed.
No, it's just broken.
Don't say broken.
Thank you. So what are our challenges? You just saw one. So what are our challenges? We have multiple challenges. I would not like to deep dive in all because we don't have time. But in short, we do see an increase in attack surface. So with the work from home, the pandemic accelerated the work from home. The policies like bring your own device, new technologies, Internet of Things, OT, the doors from which an attacker can come in are exploding. So we see a very high increase in attack surface. So high that we can dare to say that the digital world now has no perimeter, no defense perimeter, at least physical defense perimeter. I was discussing with a colleague of mine yesterday, and we have the old school of thought and the new school of thought of cyber. So the old school of thought, I was going to the office back in the day, opening the door, opening the PC, doing my job, close the PC, close the door, and go home. And that was it. And that was a perimeter. Right now, we don't have this anymore. Every data can be accessed from anywhere. So what is the perimeter? A virtual one, at least. Could be the identity itself. Another challenge is the artificial intelligence, that we like it or not, it's here. And yeah, Europol announced late March that one of the most famous chatbots can be weaponized, for example, for phishing. It can write phishing mails better than I can. But AI can also be used for good. We use it in our product for defense. Supply chain, and of course, ever-increasing demand of security experts. And one touch on the digital sovereignty, especially in the context of the war. So what is digital sovereignty? So we can look at it from two angles. From a data perspective and a technological perspective. So the degree of control an individual organization or government has on its own data and on the technology that it uses. So we have to answer three main questions. Where is my data? Where is the technology that I'm using? Who can access my data? Who can develop, design the technology? And of course, a very important one, regulation. How? What laws are required for my data? What laws are required for my technologies? For example, how do we regulate AI? And when? So, the threats are evolving. Ransomware can be easily bought as a service from dark web. So nobody has to know technical stuff. They can go on the dark web, have money, buy it as a service, and someone will feel the ransomware attack. APTs, advanced persistent threat, are on a very high rise right after ransomware. So to make it short, what can we do about it? Education, education, and education, right? This is one of the pillars. So, of course, we need to continue with the cybersecurity awareness. The famous statement, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to be attacked. Cybersecurity hygiene, many times the simple things makes the whole difference. Zero trust, we have a whole technical architecture around this concept, but from an education point of view, people need to understand that trust is not by default. We don't trust default applications, softwares, hardwares. It needs to be earned and maintained. I know most of us has clicked on internet, accept, next, finish, just to get where on the content they want. And of course, we need to educate in resilience. Individuals, organizations, governments need to understand what resilience means to them, to have a recover plan, a quick recover plan, and to be ready. Another recommendation would be to have legislation, and I'm very happy to see that Romania is one of the first states in the world that regulated diplomacy and cyber hygiene in one law. So legislation, a big factor in resilience. Also migrating to platforms such as cloud, because then we, at least if we look at the war, they did this migration and at least they were safe from the physical attack toward the technology and the data. And of course, why not move to a security provider who can do security better than one individual. Resilience must be as a requirement in the design of a strategy. And we need to use AI, right? Not only for the bad, we need to use it also for good. And of course, the last recommendation is to address the problem of cybersecurity in a holistic manner, end to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Octavian. Yes, education, education, and education. That is the key. So, I invite Mr. Alexandru Mărgineanu, Ali, to take the speech, please.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Alexandru Mărgineanu. I'm working for Nokia Cybersecurity Services, and I would like to share with you a few thoughts about what we are doing in Nokia about cybersecurity and some technology trends, which, well, I try to fit myself into the time. I will start saying that the modern society is more and more becoming a risk society because the technology we are creating, it's producing the risk we need to tackle with. And that's a reality we are facing today, and that's a fact. And it makes us believing that we need to be a step ahead of those which are trying to leverage the technology to jeopardize the data and, in the end, our life. So, what we are doing at Nokia in terms of security? First of all, I would like to highlight that we are looking at security from telco perspective. We are telco-centric because this is in our DNA, and we do have knowledge in telco world for several decades, and we are bringing knowledge in security area. We have a lot of security projects, and we are actively involved in defining regulation around the telecommunication world. I was spending the last 1.5 years abroad developing the European Cybersecurity Excellence Center in France. And, well, one of the most important things, outcome of this center, is the threat intelligence report. I warmly encourage you to visit our booth over there. We have a physical copy of this threat intelligence report with the latest details, attacks on mobile networks, the malwares, the distributed DOS, So I think it's for those which are interested in the topic, I think it's a relevant material. I'm not going to spend too much time on the findings here, but well, I encourage you once again to visit the booth over there. So cybersecurity, it's our play is that it's ensuring business by mitigation the risk of the integrity, confidentiality, and availability of the data. That's a common definition of what cybersecurity means. So we are dealing with today with a complex technological environment which is changing a lot. So we are shifting technology. Actually, the time frame on which a new technology is launched into the market, it's at half with every mobile communication technology. From 2G to 3G, there was something like 10 years. From 3G to 4G was something like 5 years. So basically, we are in a fast-paced changing environment. That are the major findings of the report I will mention, and once again you can find a physical copy and a digital one over there with the description of the attacks, the latest attacks in the last year on the mobile networks, malware description, and also DDoS. Well, where we are today in terms of mobile communication, starting well, almost 30 years ago from 2G, which was purely voice, continuing with the 3G, which was a shift to the data. 4G was the first technology which allowed well, data communication. Now 5G, it's about not connecting everyone, but connecting everything. So it's a massive proliferation of the critical machine communication, the so-called IoT. It's a change in the architecture and the topology of the 5G networks, which brings technology enablers like cloud, like network slicing. So all of those are increasing the surface of potential attacks. And Nokia, as a leader vendor for telecommunication solutions, is regarding security aspect as a paramount part of our activities. So that's why we are bringing in our own solutions and products a strong design for security. And on top of that, we are also providing a list of services which are here highlighted. Just a second. Well, we are playing a role in security products, security services, including consulting, and security services delivery. So that's something we are taking very serious because we know our customers and our partners are relying on Nokia for providing those services. In support of what I said before, the 5G is bringing new technology drivers in the pictures. And you can see here the massive deployment of clouds. Either they are edge clouds or the central cloud. Edge clouds are needed because the 5G, one of the main characteristic of 5G is the low latency, being able to provide a fast response to towards the user equipment. And we are doing, well, the standard said you can do that by processing close to the network edge. So all those edge clouds are potential potential targets for cybersecurity attacks. So that's a very schematic view of the network, and here it's a bit more in details, and also with the kind of attacks which can occur on every topology segment. Either we are talking about the user end equipment, the transport parts, the core, and that's something those all on the bottom of the slides are use cases on which we have developed specific detection and response metrics. So, to summarize, the networks today are facing the following challenges: the new service complexity, the new technologies, the regulations which are in place, the human forces which are involved in the cyber security, which are scarce this day. One of the, 5G is coming with a potential answer to the scalability and time to market issues they are facing today. And we are looking very careful about the security as a service in the telecom aspect. And basically this is a service which is delivering a business outcome in a subscriber model and with a cloud native software and having automated life cycle. That's very important. We are looking around us, there is more and more software as a service, and we were thinking that security as a service is going to be something which will be able to respond to the challenges the operators and our partners and customers are facing today. Why security as a service now? Because the stage is set. We are seeing more and more global and local data centers deployed, more and more cloud-native applications. We are seeing that the as a service, it's a mainstream delivery model now, and also we can see that the final piece of the value chain in order to monetize the 5G deployment our partner has, it's about the security as a service. Do I still have time? Yeah, conclusion. Well, I just want to address a few things about the future. And the future is the 6G. Well, now the standards, it's under development as we speak. It's not yet there. But the target, the business outcome for the 6G has been well defined already. So basically, if 6G is going to be, will unify the digital, physical, and the human world, making a smarter network, which is able to be seen as an informational, very smart informational knowledge system. The network will be able to sense, so we'll be able to collect various kind of data from the reality. Well, I have a session about the way artificial intelligence and cybersecurity work hand in hand, and here is depicted what, let's say, specific use cases which are already there, the network, anomaly behaviors, detections, security automation. We are already doing forward steps in those directions in Nokia, and here are decrypted some capabilities and use cases which they can be addressed by the artificial intelligence. I'm going to stop here, and I'm looking forward for the Q&A session.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alexandru. We have a very useful presentation. So we have now 15 minutes for discussions. Yeah, who has some questions? Yeah, please present you and a short question is possible.
Yeah, 3 short questions. The first speaker was speaking about organizing security at a national level. Now, criticism I heard was that there are still cyber threats, and their reasons in a country are known, but they are not shared because they are considered to be a state secret. And that hampers, obviously, the learning process. Any comment on this? Yeah? So
I cannot understand very well your question.
The question is that if a cyber attack happens in Romania, and now please take Romania just as an example, and that attack and the logic behind it is classified as a state secret, the reasons behind will not be shared with other countries. Now, don't take this as an attack on your country. This is just by way of example. But the criticism has been voiced that there is too little exchange between the countries because too many attacks are classified as threats. Second question, the most vulnerable part in our economy are SMEs because the big companies, they have the manpower and the finances to buy the products and to engage in cybersecurity. So where is the market developing to help the SMEs who don't have either the finances to buy the very expensive, mostly American products, and they don't have the manpower? And the last question, sir, your wonderful slide outlining the threats at every possible layer, I think some CEOs of companies, they would be just shrieking. What is the reaction you experience when you explain that this is reality and how should they react? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, who start first? Yeah.
If I have a microphone, yes. Thank you, because as you said government,
Ladies
so
first.
I felt somehow targeted about it. I think the critique of countries not sharing attacks is not totally fundamental. We share attacks on different channels. We share attacks with our partners under NATO format. We share attacks with EU partners on EU format. We very often share machine-to-machine data directly with our partners in the Balkans, because we are here in the Balkans, but not necessarily only Balkans. It can be other partners across the oceans, both of them. So we do share attacks. What I think it's important, we also had a lot of data about Ukraine, for example, and we share this data. It's important to work together to understand the context, because sometimes this type of data that we exchange telling us about how the attack looks, but we have to learn how to prevent them. In order to do that, we have to understand the context. So this is maybe this type of conferences help us understand better and better this type of context. And as a click on that, the attacks that are at least or not necessarily shared or late shared are the attacks on companies, because the companies are concerned about reputation. Sometimes in the government, if they attack your governmental website or your election website, you cannot do anything. I mean, it's public, everybody sees it. But as a company, you are very reluctant sometimes to share these things. But they do it on a trust basis. This is important, to have this trust basis between the institution like us and the companies and the entities, because they share it. Even if they don't share it publicly, they share it with us and help us prevent other attacks. So I'm really thinking that working together in this direction is the key, and building trust among each others. Because there is no person that didn't have an attack. It's only persons that don't know that had an attack.
Yes, thank you, Manuela. Yeah, we always, if we have trust, we share with our friends. Okay, to the second.
I can take the second question. So actually, it's a very nice question. So big money, big companies can buy big tech. What about the little guys? Well, we are a security service provider, we at Eviden. Actually, we are the #1 in the world according to Gartner. And we serve both big and small, because we have the necessary capacity to be, so for example, when we invest in hardware, we can virtualize it and sell pieces of it as a service to small customers. So one of my recommendations in the slide was move to a service provider, a security service provider, because yes, you're right, a small company doesn't have the necessary finance to invest in securing everything in the whole ecosystem, which is an extremely complex one. Even the experts get confused sometimes. But the security service providers have the models and the means to sell also security cheaper than if a company would invest in security itself.
Okay, thank you, Octavian. And for last question.
Now, I'm going to refer to your question concerning the way the executives, at least on the operator side, are looking for the risk we are highlighting during our conversation we had with them on those topics. Actually, one of the first, the start in this conversation is an activity we are calling audit compliance management. And basically we are checking the configurations of each subsystem which compose a network. And well, despite the fact that each subsystem has its own security rules, sometimes putting those together may lead to security holes. And that's what we are trying to tackle. In that respect, we have created a security playbook dedicated to 4G and 5G networks with dedicated use cases. We are having the abilities and the tools to detect and to close those particular gaps. And we are making aware the executive in this area about the holes and the remediation timeline for those, to do it in a timely manner and efficient one. I hope it answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? We have 5 minutes more. Yeah.
So I heard multiple speakers talk about the necessity of regulation within a framework. How do we reduce the latency between the introduction of a new threat model or a new threat action to the actual rollout of regulation? And how do we keep the regulation or the regulating bodies agile enough to morph strategy as things continue to play out in the future?
Thank you. Well,
yeah, regulation, we always are one step behind, no matter on the subject. Sometimes in cybersecurity, we are 2 steps behind, even if we can imagine, or AI, or this type of things. So we realize that we cannot regulate everything. I think sometimes, maybe it's a kitchen example, but 95% of the things can be done with I don't know, old woman with common sense. It's something that you cannot regulate. If we build this trust, even with the community, we get a lot of information from the community, even without regulation. For example, I give you the Kaspersky regulation. We regulated the governmental entities. We have like 5 companies in the next 5 days that report to us that they implement the regulation, even if it was not for them, because they thought that it's relevant for them. So sometimes there is always a thin line between too much regulation and not enough regulation. I think both directions can go, but the most important thing is to build trust, to educate, to train, to retrain, to build culture. Because culture is always, as you said before, I mean, it's sometimes way more relevant. So regulation it's a business in its own, and we don't speak about regulation in Europe because you have this our Brussels people that speak about regulation sometimes quite in depth. But I think we try to not over-regulate in order to let the business flourish. It's always a gain and a loss. But trust has to be feed, has to take care of that. It's a relation. It's a give and take. You cannot only use the whip. It's not functioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuela. So we need to close this panel. I thank you all for your participation and attention. I thank you to all our speakers for sharing valuable expertise, knowledge. Thank you all. Thank you who send rain and try our security systems. Yeah, okay. And I hope that you are enjoyed our topic. Thank you.
pleasure to welcome you to the panel number 4, entitled Economic Resilience in the Balkans, Diversifying Resources and Opportunities. Of course, any decision has economic and financial implications, therefore the latest as well as ongoing events take in consideration this kind of decisions, given that in recent years, economic resilience has become a popular term in both theory and policy practice. This interest was triggered by the fact that some regional economies were extremely vulnerable, while others have managed to overcome more or less effectively the worst consequences of the current economic events. Beyond the developing literature regarding the meaning of the concept, there is also a rising debate on the policy level about the most appropriate measures and strategies which reduce the vulnerability of spatial systems to shocks and enhance their ability to better respond and recover from crises. For instance, policy makers question themselves what type of policies can make countries, regions, and even urban areas more resilient. As crises are contextual, duration and severity may vary. Where should one put this effort on? Or it is possible to develop some tools to prevent or at least mild the strongest consequences of the crisis. The rapidly changing of geopolitical environment causes serious challenges to EU economic policy. During the financial and COVID-19 crisis, many countries in the EU were already heavily indebted, and the next shock has already affected the society overall. The Ukrainian invasion has significant global economic implications impacting industries and countries around the world. The invasion briefly has fueling a three-dimensional crisis, food, energy, and financial, that hits the most vulnerable people, countries, and economies of the world. All of this takes place at a time when developing countries are still struggling with a range of challenges not created by them, but by exogenous events like COVID pandemic, climate change, and lack of access to proper resources for financial recovery in a context of constant and growing inequality. The war in Ukraine causes trade and investment disruptions through the world, affecting several industries as well as car manufacturers, food or fuel consumers worldwide. Disruptions in global and regional supply chains have caused raw material shortages and higher prices. Starting from this general context, I would like to invite our speakers to share their ideas related to the topic of economic resilience. And in this respect, we will start with first speaker, Ms. Ana Dumitrache, Country Head CTP Romania. Ana Dumitrache successfully runs the largest real estate company specializing in industrial and logistics in the country, with a portfolio of 2.5 million square meters in different locations in Romania and a complex team of more than 100 people, ranging from finance to project management and construction through leasing, merger and acquisitions, and property management, always with a focus on a business development. A City University of City alumni with a financial MBA, Ana Dumitrache spent 18 years as a banker, specializing in complex financing and real estate, building a reputation as a deal maker in the local real estate market. In 2016, she joined Remon Vos in the CTP Romania venture, with the clear goal of transforming the local unit into a market leader and growth engine for the entire group, which she has succeeded in doing, with the last years making an average of 15% growth in CTP's portfolio and consolidating the market leadership position CTP has already achieved in 2017. Ana Dumitrache is a leader who leads by example as well as by the power of the mind, with outstanding operational management skills and unexpected creativity in many challenging situations in complex procurement structures and large lease transactions. With an impeccable reputation, she is one of the leaders tenaciously striving to raise standards and contribute to the development through transparency and fairness of the Romanian real estate market. Ms. Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for these words. It's very nice, the presentation you've made. I think there's still a lot for me to do. Now, getting back to your question of resilience, I think because you have mentioned the growth of our company of 15% per year, which was valid also last year, I think it's very interesting to emphasize the dichotomy between the Western Europe and CEE, because we believe in our segment in the real estate industry that resilience is somehow easier in our part of the world, in CEE countries, due to the opportunities and due to the features of the region. As an investor, CTP believes in the region, and so far our assumptions were confirmed. That's why we think resilience is easier here, because the whole region is business smart. It still presents one third of the overall workforce cost by comparison with Western Europe and even China. So China has become very expensive from workforce perspective already, because it's also very far away and also poses economic and political risks, which are totally different in European Union. So the whole CE is business smart, as I was saying. It has an untapped nearshoring demand, so all the big companies and multinationals are looking to nearshore. I mean, to bring their production facilities closer to their mother companies in Europe and to shorten the supply chain, because there were so many interruptions during the last years on the supply chain, and because of the economic and political uncertainties, they're looking to produce rather region to region, so they're not going to Asia anymore. And then if they're looking to produce in Europe, surprisingly, they're coming to CE, and we see this in Romania, so we think this is a point of resilience, and which we should exploit and emphasize and take the opportunity to develop this and attract this investment. So it's up to us just to grab the apple. It's also a landscape where e-commerce has been developing little or not enough. We're lagging behind. You know, I'm speaking now about the advantage of a disadvantage, meaning that the fact that we are somehow behind the Western Europe with the developments, we have the premises of being more resilient in this multi-layered crisis we are facing right now. E-commerce is one of these segments where we're lagging behind Western Europe, and is a lot of to cover up by our economy and other economies around us. Also, it needs to be mentioned that due to all these reasons, our region was outperforming in terms of GDP and in terms of overall economic results. So we think that, we strongly believe that the key of the resilience of the local economies in the whole region, but also in Romania especially, is to grab these opportunities which are offered, and especially in the area of nearshoring and making it feasible from infrastructure point of view. And also from the perspective of making available the educated workforce, and because we are here in an event which is close to education, and because you are deeply involved in this, it's super important that the universities keep themselves open and prepare people which are ready to join these nearshoring efforts of multinational companies, and not only for high-intensity labor developments and investments, but rather moving towards add-value type of investments. And we have a few examples in our portfolio of big multinational companies who are looking to develop and whom we are supporting to develop manufacturing facilities in Romania. Last but not least, it is to be mentioned that Bucharest is the 5th largest city in Europe, and we shouldn't be forgetting that. And there's still a lot of room in Romania for cities like Timișoara and others, but I especially mention your city because I think it's important. And to take the example of the largest country in CE, which is Poland, we are the second largest, and we should take their example because actually they don't have only Warsaw, which is a big city indeed, and it concentrates all the economic developments of the country, but the regional cities in Poland are super developed and they're very important players in the Polish economy. And we also believe that in Romania, there's the premise to develop the regional cities. I don't like to call them secondary cities. We used to see them as secondary cities. This is rather negative connotation. Would rather like to have regional cities, like in Poland, to be able to develop not only in Bucharest, which is very nice, it's good. We have 70% of our business there. Our second largest development is in Timișoara, right now as the level of investment. And it's not just happens, but we really want as an investor to develop these regional centers because we think there's a lot of potential throughout the country.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. We will keep the question section at the end. And now we will move to the second speaker, Ms. Ileana Gabor, which is past president of North American Economic Club and currently CFO, Eastern Europe Building Technology, Honeywell, Romania. Ms. Ileana Gabor is the current director of supply chain. She holds a degree in economics from Romanian Economic University in 1999. Within the North American Economic Club, she has assumed a leadership role as a member of the board of directors during the period of 2021-2022, so somehow overlapping the pandemic. Additionally, she held the position of the president in the first half of 2021, fueled by her commitment to establishing a robust partnership between Romania and the USA, as well as promoting transatlantic economic and social development perspectives. Ms. Ileana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and to speak. Thank you very much for having me as invite to speak about North American Economic Club and how I do see this organization. And first of all, I would like to speak who we are, what we are doing, and what is the purpose. And as Claudiu was mentioning about the fact that I was holding this position when the pandemic started, it was quite an interesting period. And if I go back, I do remember that 3 years ago, we were having in Timișoara the visit of the ex-ambassador of the United States in Romania, Mr. Zuckerman, who together with a few of the key people from this region said, we would like to do something here in this region, in the western part of Romania. What about if we are setting up an economic club? And the idea came together to have the key companies that are speaking about their needs, how they are performing, how they can partner. On top of this, definitely, we are not able to perform without having together the support of the universities. So we were building the strong partnership with the West University. And together we were trying to understand which are the key needs from this region. So when we were setting up the club, we are setting up as a non-profit organization who brings together the competencies from the key American companies from this region, entrepreneurial, successful entrepreneurial from this region, and as well academic environment. Together with the local authorities. Why we are doing this? Because we do need to understand which are the key pillars where we do need to focus. And I'm going to speak as well about this period connected with the pandemic. by setting up the organization, the first, and I'm going to speak about the key three things that we were doing during this period. First of all, after we were setting up as organization, we were trying to better knowledge which are the processes, what we are doing and how we are doing in the organization, and why it's so important to understand how we are performing, because it's exchange of experience, it's understanding the culture, it's understanding the production, and it's understanding the needs. Because if we are going back to pandemic, when the pandemic came, everybody was scared. If you are robust enough to have a strong management operating system in place, you are setting up an immediate team to overcome with all this situation. The second thing that we were thinking is, okay, we are doing this, we are knowing each other. What we are letting us after that? We grew. I'm looking now in front of everybody. I'm looking to my speakers. I just came from my work where I was having a lot of meetings, but I'm coming as well from my son just graduated, and I was asking my team, because I was in the board, what we are letting behind, how we are growing, and how the organization can grow. And then the key thing is connected with the leadership. So this is the second area where we are strongly connected with the university. I want to say big thanks to Flavia Barna and Miruna Iannache, who are involved. And speaking about leadership, it's not only about training, it's about training, learning how to do, but as well bringing the students in the field, staying with them, coaching, and prepare for the future. Because in few years, in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we will not any longer take the position of the CFO, we will not be leading the processes. So this is the second thing. The third one is, okay, we are a strong organization. What we are going to do next? We are going to have additional members in order to understand how they operate, and this is the key area that we were doing during this year, to focus on organization development, and as well to understand how the other organizations from Europe are performing. And why these three key pillars are so important? Because speaking about resilience, and speaking about the challenges that we are facing, starting with 2020 and with the price increase for energy, it's very important, because being robust and knowing what you are doing, then you are able to build a strong management operating system. When the pandemic came, we were really scared. I can tell you that in 2 weeks, we were able to transform one of the factory into a production for the mask. So it's important to be agile. Speaking about resilience, we have to learn to be agile, to do the things much more quicker. We can be agile if we are having a strong business knowledge, if we are having a strong leadership, if we are understanding the needs of each process behind in order to come to a clear situation. So I can say that, yes, the increase in the energy, it's a fact, but it should not be a scare, because we need to rethink immediately to focus on sustainability. If we are looking now, 80% of the buildings are very old, so basically we really need to see what we are doing over there in order to understand the option to save the things. So when I'm speaking about these key pillars, about focusing on the strategy, building a clear management operating system, it's so important with the right people that we are having in order to build resilience. Without having a clear management operating system, without having a focus on the leaders for tomorrow, we will not be able to focus on the resilience. Speaking about geopolitical environment, indeed, this is impacting in Eastern Europe, is impacting in Europe and globally. 5 years ago, we were looking only on the globalization. We do remember that 4 or 5 years ago, it was the first time when US implemented import tax from China, 25%. Come on, when this happened, definitely all planning, everything was screwed up. We want to keep the same stability for our people, for our employee. We do not want to decrease the salary. We want to have the valid product to save our life. So it's so important to look very careful on each step in order to overcome this situation. And then we came with the strategy, East for East, East for Rest. So which are our products that we are focusing, how we are serving the market, which are the needs, which is the need of the smallest countries. In Balkans, we are having 20 countries that are speaking different languages. In Europe, in Germany, one language. In US, it's such a big continent, everybody speaks English. So making the summary, it's very important to have such an organization, a non-profit organization that brings together the competencies from what we know in order to develop the future leaders and future process, and not to be scared about the situation because it's an economic cycle and we need to be able to build resilience in our team, in our organization, and at the end, in our relation one-to-one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will move now to the third speaker, which is online with us today, Mr. Alexandru Maximescu, Vice President of OMV Petrom Romania. He has joined OMV Petrom's Public and Regulatory Affairs Department in 2012 and serves as director starting early 2014. He advocates the company's position on all issues relevant to the industry and maintains the dialogue with political and near-political stakeholder groups, EU institutions, and other international actors. Mr. Maximescu has both government and private sector experience in domestic and international affairs. Beginning with January 2007, he served as Justice and Home Affairs Counselor at the permanent representation of Romania to the European Union. In this respect, he coordinated the accession process of Romania to the Schengen area, including implementation of the Schengen Facility financial instrument. More than 400 million was allocated with an absorption rate of 100%. Previously, Mr. Maximescu worked as counselor in the Romanian Ministry of Administration and Interior. Between January 2004 and September 2005, he acted as advisor to the CEO of Sanavita AG and Company from Germany. Mr. Maximescu graduated from the Faculty of European Studies and International Relations, Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj-Napoca, and has a major in political science from Westphal-Wilhelm University in Münster, Germany. Mr. Maximescu, I hope you hear us. Please, you have the floor.
Hello to everybody. Thank you very much. I hear you very well. I hope that you are also hearing me very well. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me once again to this very important debate. I think not only Bucharest is a place where important debates can take place, but also cities as Timișoara are a very good host for such debates. Energy is key for economic resilience. And looking at the title of our panel, diversifying resources is key for this resilience. Let's look back 1 year ago when the war in Ukraine has started. And the war caused an incredible, never seen price increase in energy. Where are we after 1 year? If we look at our fuel prices, gas prices, electricity prices, the industry has proven to be very resilient. And once the supply chain were restored, we have seen that prices came down. And I just looked today at our filling stations. The price for our fuel is back to the level before the war. This is a sign of resilience. I will speak very briefly about the Black Sea and the role of OMV Petrom in the Black Sea. Over the past year, the Romanian Black Sea proved to have an incredible potential, both economically but also as a strategic opportunity for energy security and for regional energy security. Turkey has discovered gas reserves close to 700 BCM. Bulgaria reserves are heading towards 100 BCM. According to public available data, the resources of Georgia are close to 250 BCM. The estimated reserves of Romania in the Black Sea are reaching 200 BCM. For the time being, the Black Sea assures approximately 10% of the natural gas used in Romania. But the existing resources are producing since decades. The recent activities, exploration activities, have discovered new reserves that have to be brought on stream. OMV Petrom sees in the development of those regional resources a key opportunity for the region. We have exploration and exploitation rights in Bulgaria, Romania, Georgia, thus contributing to an increase of energy security regionally. We see the natural gas in the Black Sea as a huge opportunity for our growth strategy. Natural gas is a key factor also in reducing the CO2 footprint of our economy. The objective of our company is to increase the percentage of natural gas into our portfolio up to 70%. Thus, Neptun Deep is a huge opportunity for OMV Petrom as well as Romania. We have more than 40 years of experience in operations in the Black Sea that allow us to continue the growth in the region. As you can see, we have perimeters in the region in Bulgaria, Hanasparuh, in Georgia, perimeter number 2, as well as in Romania. We will continue considerable investments in the exploration in the Black Sea. And now, a few words about the most strategic project that we have in the region and that will serve diversification and the diversification of our gas resources, namely Neptun. Neptun Deep is a very strategic project. We took over operatorship in August last year, and we are in this project together as an equal partner with Romgaz. We are planning development investments close to 4 billion euros in Neptun. The Neptune block has a surface of approximately 7,500 square kilometers, where the depth of the water is between 100 and 1,000 meters. A final investment decision for this project is expected in the second part of the year, so very, very soon. Of course, we still have to observe and to undertake all the necessary internal governance approval. If the decision will be taken, the first gas will flow towards 2027 in the national transport system of Romania through the Transgas grid. We are estimating a recoverable resource of roughly 100 BCM with an equivalent production of 140 kilobarrel per day. The natural gas from Neptune Deep is crucial in order to compensate the reduction of the production of gas from Romania. Neptune Deep will not only serve in order to compensate the demand, but also it will generate significant resources for Romania. So internal consumption will be covered, but Romania can play a regional role in supplying neighboring countries. There are also other benefits for the project and deriving from the project for Romania, and I will be very brief here. Not only that it will compensate the decline of production, but it will serve also as a potential supplier of security, of energy security within the region. According to a Deloitte study that was done in 2018, the projects in the Black Sea that include also Neptune Deep will generate an incredible economic opportunity for Romania, namely roughly 70 billion US dollar to the GDP, 30,000 annual jobs, direct and indirect, that will be maintained, and approximately 26 billion US dollar to the state budget. If we divide those sums to the state budget on a yearly basis, we will reach approximately 1.2 billion US dollar annually for the state budget. And I would conclude with the following. The gas from the Neptune Deep project is a huge opportunity for Romania. It will position Romania as a regional leader in terms of gas, but it will also allow us to test and implement new technologies such as hydrogen in a very sustainable manner, using our indigenous gas. Second, it will allow us to smooth our transition towards a zero carbon economy, because gas, as you know, has the lowest all hydrocarbons. I'm open for any questions if you have. I'm concluding here, and thank you very much.
I don't know if you will be with us until the end of the section, so maybe for Mr. Maximescu we can provide now the questions. Or can you hear us?
I hear you very well. I will try to be here with you till the end of the session.
Perfect then. So we will keep the questions at the end of the section. Let's move now to the next speaker, Ms. Nina Vujanovic, who is an economist at Vienna Institute for Economic International Studies, Montenegro, researching topics on international trade, foreign direct investments, and the Balkans. She previously worked as an advisor to the vice governor at the Central Bank of Montenegro, as well as a consultant at United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, Division on Investment and Enterprise, and a research fellow at World Trade Organization, Economic Research and Statistics Division. She published papers in the area of foreign direct investment, productivity, innovation, or credit risk. She holds a PhD in international economics from Staffordshire University and a master in economic policy from University College London. So, Ms. Nina Vujanovic, you have the floor. I think she also has a presentation, so.
That's correct. So I will wait a bit. Voila, good. Well, thank you very much for having me on this very important subject, which I'm happy to contribute with some economic data and rationale. So my name is Nina Vujanovic from Vienna Institute of International Economic Studies in Vienna, and I will give you some figures and numbers to show you how Western Balkan 6 economies have survived the COVID-19 crisis and energy crisis, and they're still surviving it. So let me give you the outline of the presentation. First, so first I'll talk about economic resilience to shocks of each Western Balkan economy, so looking individually, because even though we're studying the region as a whole, there are some heterogeneities in terms of the structure of the economy. I'll focus more on the energy sector because we're still in the energy crisis, and I'm happy that my presentation follows after Mr. Alexander's because there are some interesting interconnections here. Then I will follow with a forecast of main economic indicators as given by the Vienna Institute of National Economic Studies, and I will conclude this presentation with a study that investigates what are the potential industries of growth in Western Balkan region, and how, if we actually focus on these industries, how we can push the economic resilience further in the Western Balkans. Okay, so on the next slide, we show the GDP growth rates for the Western Balkan 6 individual countries from 2015 to 2022. And you see, of course, there is a huge decline in 2020 because there was a COVID-19 crisis, but not every country survived it the same way. So you can see that Montenegro, which is a very open and service-based economy, had over 15% decline in GDP, but then Serbia, that is very much manufacturing-based, had a modest recession of minus 0.3. Of course, last year, the growth rates declined, but last year it seems that manufacturing-based economies suffered more and had lower growth rates because the energy crisis has hit manufacturing sector more than the service sector. And here on this slide, I show the catching up of these economies over the 2019, which is a pre-pandemic year, until the 2020. So here we index 2019 as the year of correspondence, which we are comparing the GDP level to in the years afterwards for 2021, 2020 and 2022. As we see, of course, that the GDP has declined in 2020, but it started catching up later on. And most of the economies actually caught up to the pre-pandemic level in 2021, but those economies that are service-based had a little bit longer catching up growth. So Montenegro, for instance, caught up to the level of the pre-pandemic GDP only in 2022. And of course, the industrial output has suffered a lot during the crisis time, so we see the decline in 2020, and we see the decline in 2022 during the energy crisis, but it seems that during the energy crisis in 2022, the growth rates were more affected. So the crisis affected the growth, but it seems that much of it is industrial specific. And of course, it's hard to avoid the topic on inflation because the energy crisis was also an inflation crisis, and we are still, in fact, into it. So here I charted the inflation of the Western Balkan economies from 2015 onwards, and you see that inflation peaked in 2022. It started stabilizing in the first couple of months of this year. There's no inflation for 2024. Sorry, for 2023 in April, but I can assure you that the level of inflation has also decreased in this year too. So basically inflation peaked in 2022 when it averaged 11.8%, and that was actually higher than the EU inflation, which was 2.8 percentage point lower than the one experienced in the Balkans. What we also found is that not every single country in the Western Balkans experienced the same inflation. I here showed you basically the average levels, but those economies that have monetary policy tools, like North Macedonia, Serbia, and Albania, actually managed to control inflation towards the end of the 2022 much better than countries that do not have monetary policy, like Kosovo, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And a particularly successful case was Albania, that controlled the inflation quite well and was the single country that had a one-digit inflation last year. Oh, I cannot see the slides here in front of me, but I'll try to lead you through it. So here are the 2022 inflation rates as presented by a blue line. So that's a CPI index, which measures inflation. But then you see the orange chart, which represents the food price inflation. So it's inflation stemming from food. And there is an energy, oh yeah, here it is. And there's an energy prices as presented by a gray bar. So you would see here is that in Western Balkan economies, the inflation was really driven by food prices primarily, as it was all the prices stemming for food was 2 digits and even 20 and above, but energy prices were not equally hitting each Western Balkan economy. So you see that, for instance, Serbia and North Macedonia actually really experienced high energy prices inflation, but other economies of the Western Balkan had inflation stemming through energy prices, but not so much. And I'll try to explain this with a couple of slides that are following why this is the case. And here I also compared, of course, the numbers to Austria and Germany. Here you can see the share of gas in total energy consumption in 2022 is presented in percentage points. And you see that what is presented as red, those are the Western Balkan economies. The rest of the countries are the countries that our institute investigates, and those are Eastern European economies, many of which are in the EU. And here you see that only Serbia and North Macedonia are actually dependent on gas. And these shares are about 15%, but other economies are having a very modest or not at all dependence on gas. Here's another chart that supports why energy prices were not hitting each economy equally, and it's a chart on total gross energy imports as a share of total production in 2020. And here you see that basically Western Balkan economies on average import about 30% of their energy. And that's actually a lot lower than the figure for the EU, which stands at 57%. So Western Balkan as a whole seems to have a competitive edge in the energy sector. However, we have, of course, some diversification here. So higher imports are noted in North Macedonia. So North Macedonia imports 63% of its energy, and that's why it's a very vulnerable sector in this country. Oh, I'm having some issues. And so this is another important chart, again, on the energy, because the topic is really the energy crisis. So here you see the energy production mix in each Western Balkan economies as compared with the EU and Austria. And the blue part of the chart shows the percentage share of production stemming from renewable energy, in particular hydropower. And you see that some countries have really a competitive edge there, like Montenegro, Albania, and even Bosnia and Herzegovina, whose shares of renewables in the energy mix is actually higher than the one in the EU. But on the other hand, Serbia, North Macedonia, and Kosovo rely a lot more on brown industries when producing energy, and that's why the transition. So basically, they're producing a lot more from solid fossil fuels, and the share of the renewables in their energy mix is a lot smaller, and even smaller than one in the EU countries. So what we see here is that these three countries have a more vulnerable sector, and will actually have a higher cost facing energy transition and green transition that is intertwined with energy transition in the future. And to conclude with this nice chart, this is basically, this chart shows you the net imports of energy, and that's basically imports minus exports. So when the country has a positive value, it's a net importer, and its energy sector is actually vulnerable. But when it has a negative value, it's a net exporter, and it exports more energy than imports. And what you see here on this chart is that countries that are labeled with red are Western Balkans economies, and you clearly see that Montenegro and Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina are net exporters. So they export more energy than import. So there is really a competitive edge in these couple economies. But on the other hand, other economies are net importers, but still not as vulnerable as the rest of the countries that the Institute is investigating. So, to conclude the previous slide, because the whole point was really focusing on the energy sector because we are still living in the energy crisis, this is to show you that the Western Balkan economies do have some competitive edge, but not all of them. Like some countries have competitive edge with renewables, but other countries rely a lot more on coal. And because I'm short on time, I'll just conclude with the focus of the Institute, the main economic indicators, and that's unemployment rate and GDP level, and also the inflation. So here you first see at the very bottom, the focus over the 2023 towards 2025 for the Western Balkan 6 economy as a whole and individually. I'll not speak much about that, but we also do forecasts over the 3 years period for current account deficit and fiscal deficit, but this is a different topic, so I won't touch much upon it. But these forecasts will be updated, by the way, during this month, so these figures are already old. And now the question is, how can we push the growth further? How can we make this focus higher? So I'm going to just present to you very briefly, because I think I'm running out of time. What are the sectors? We are fine? Okay, so what are actually the sectors of Western Balkan economies that have a potential for competitive edge and potential for growth? And according to the study of Jovanovic and myself, published earlier this year, we found that energy sector, agri-food sector, automotive sector, and IT sector, and textile sector are the five, and also tourism, are the 6 sector of the Western Balkan economies that in which policymakers should have a greater attention on and have a further potential for growth. Energy sector, for obvious reason, it has a definitely competitive edge in some of the Western Balkan economies, and it's very much in line with the green transition, which implies the reformation on the energy sector in particular, and higher focus on the renewables. Agri-food sector is the second sector, which takes a large share of GDP in each Western Balkan economy. This is also in line with European Green Deal. By the way, Balkan has a Western Balkan green agenda, which is very much in line with European Green Deal, and it's adopted in 2020. So agri-food sector has an importance, a big importance in this deal. And as we know now, due to the crisis that we live in, which is not only energy crisis, but was a food crisis, the agri-food sector is important. Automotive sector is important for North Macedonia and Serbia. It's important sector for technological growth, for greater embeddedness of these countries into the global value chains. And we define this sector as important one of these two countries to invest in. Of course, IT sector is another sector of importance in the Western Balkan economies, even though the share of the GDP of this sector in total is very small, but it's really growing in each Western Balkan economies. And each Western Balkan economy has adopted the smart strategy specialization, which should boost the IT sector in future and innovation. And the last but not the least, Western Balkan is definitely a touristic region, and we also targeted this sector as an important sector of growth in our study. So I will conclude with this, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vojanovic. And now we'll move to the fifth speaker, Lieutenant General in Reserve, Ms. Florian Coldea, the longest-running Deputy Director of Romanian Intelligence Service, holding the office for 12 years with outstanding results. Ms. Florian Coldea ran all operations for Romania's most significant domestic intelligence agency. He was decorated both with several prestigious Romanian orders, as well as by the American partner with the CIA Alban Barclay Medallion for partnership, and by the French one with the Knight of National Order of Merit awarded by the President of France. He completed a PhD in Military and Intelligence Sciences at Mihai Viteazu National Intelligence Academy, with a thesis related around managing change in security and intelligence organizations, and has further developed intelligence research by publishing several books and articles in this field. He delivered several lectures and speeches on topics related to national security at various national institutions, attending in international conferences as a keynote speaker, and was involved in the management of the European project Armlet, setting up an Air Marshal Center in Romania, co-funded by the Prevention of and Fight Against Crime program. Currently, he shares his expertise to support the development of a solid security culture and formation of new generations of intelligence officers. As a senior lecturer of the Mihai Viteazu National Intelligence Academy in Bucharest, as well as serving associate professors for some of the most prestigious civil and military universities in Romania, like Babeș-Bolyai University, West University of Timișoara, and the Carol I National Defense Academy. Ms. Coldea, you have the floor.
So thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I want to express my appreciation for all those who make this event possible, especially to the West University of Timișoara, also to the new strategic research center, but a special thanks for all the speakers and panelists, including the distinguished members of audience, among which I saw a lot of colleagues, former colleagues and friends. They all are interested in what's going on in their region, about what's going on in this proximity of Timișoara, and this is very encouraging from the security culture point of view. It's a very challenging to be the last speaker, as always, because at least of too many reasons. First of all, everything what you want to say, it was already mentioned, because were very good presentations, and in many, many fields I found very interesting presentations today about the region, about the Western Balkans. A second major, I don't know which is the first, one of the second major problem is that you don't want to become a barrier between people and their weekend. That's very dangerous too. So I try to be brief. And I would like to emphasize that I'm approaching the topic as a humble expert in the field of intelligence, who focuses on the wider impact and role of security on the economic and strategic development. We all agreed here today many very interesting things. First of all, it is very well mentioned that Western Balkans, as part of Balkan Peninsula, it's part of the European continent. So it's no doubt that they are Europeans and we should integrate them sooner rather than later. Second, we all assess here and agreed that this was considered soft belly of our continent, and a lot of measures already were taken and things are stabilized based on the NATO accession and based on the efforts made by EU in the region. So, from this second point, this is not as it used to be a big vulnerability. It is a strategic vulnerability, or it is a vulnerability with the strategic impact, but still, after the accession in NATO, things are much better. And everybody, by the consequence, agreed that it will be not an immediate threat, an immediate kinetic threat in the region. This is, in my opinion, the most significant achievement. It will be, in other words, it will be nowhere in the region. That's extremely important. But still, the region is confronted with at least two other challenges based on what's going on. We don't have to forget at least few aspects. Today, we are witnessing a cluster of crises with high impact on security of the Black Sea and the Balkan region. In fact, two interconnected regions from a strategic point of view. The main coordinates, in my opinion, are a military crisis. We all should and have to be concerned where we are speaking about a war where is involved a major actor like Russia. They create a disruptive problem in the region and in the neighborhood countries. This is one aspect. A humanitarian crisis. We don't have to forget that currently Europe is hosting more than 8 million refugees. And we are counting only the Ukrainians as compared with 1.2 million Syrians. It's a big problem. Third crisis, it's a civil crisis in the host countries. I mean, we are confronted with significant increases in public expenditure for immediate and medium-term relief, housing, healthcare, education, and so on. The last aspect, which it's mentioned in this panel, it's about economic crisis. Has already been looming before the escalation of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So, we are already confronted with big problems. Specific for the region, almost everybody at this meeting agreed that the main problems they are confronting is about hybrid threats. But this, it was many times mentioned, even were described in details by some good specialists here. Nobody mentioned about at least one institution which has to address first this problem. Security and intelligence services. They are required first to fight with these aspects. What I want to focus in my today presentation, or to underline, which I never saw in this today discussions, is about the role of intelligence services and how they should act in this hybrid threats environment. First of all, we should remember that these were all former communist countries, and the services play a major role, were considered during the communist regime the driving forces somehow, and used by leaders for all kind of very complex things, to not say bad things. Second, this reform of the services in the region is not addressed by anybody. NATO, it's focused only on the military aspect and not the civilian services more. EU has nothing to do here, unfortunately. Based on the most important Lisbon Treaty, the security of each member state, it fell under the member state problem. So, nobody is really looking at the important institution which has to be first liner and first involved in fighting hybrid threats, to detect them, to evaluate them, to share this with other partners. So it's really a major problem which has to be underlined and put at the strategic level to understand, to have a more coherent approach about this aspect, which everybody agreed that it's a key point, hybrid threats in the region. If European Union is looking at the rule of law and they're making hard efforts to reshape the institution of these countries in the Balkan areas, intelligence and security services, nobody is approaching to really make things. What I want to say is that security culture is important for consolidated democracies, but it's more important for young democracies or for weak democracies. So, as it was mentioned here by Mr. Orban and by representative of EU, sometimes we are confronted with people in the countries which doesn't understand and doesn't make any efforts to do that. The problem is that these decision makers in these countries are entitled to make the reform of the services. Of course they are not doing a good reform of the services. They want to make a reform of the services tailored on their political agenda rather than being rebuilt according to the NATO and EU standards. So, special attention, in my opinion, and that's I want to just mention in a few words, has to be paid on reforming intelligence and security services in the region in order to increase capacity of fighting these hybrid threats. They have a better role if they are reformed, because they should enhance, they be part of the enhancing resilience. They should be part of the cooperation in the sensitive areas related with specific tactics of hybrid threats, about our non-allied and our enemies as Euro-Atlantic allies. So, just in a few words, and I will finish with that, it's, I don't know how it works, identifying in early days threats related with fake news, threats related with cybersecurity, threats related with disinformation, it is in the appanage of intelligence and security services. They should do more and better in order to convince their own customers, national, but also to attract the attention to their partners and allies. Romania did well in this respect. As it was mentioned here by representative of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fota, Romania did well in both rule of law and enhancing capacity of services to make good and better, and in order to combat these Russian threats, we were considered being a little bit accused of being Russophones many times in different European and Atlantic circles, saying that it's not like this, that we overestimate. No, Romania plays really well, and we have good examples in the moment in NATO and at the EU level about this. You should all remember NATO summit in Bucharest, where Romania was a major contribution in putting on the agenda cyber threats and also security, economic security, energy security sector. Because we realize the Russians weaponize energy sector, and we try to attract the attention of allies, even though at that time were many skepticals saying that we were not true. It was proven, unfortunately, that we were true, and that showed the capacity of national institutions, among them Romanian intelligence services, to foresee some problems which we were confronted. In this respect, that was my idea, and I want to express again, thank you very much for all colleagues here in this panel, and to wish them success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you, for the presentations. Now we have some generous time for discussions and questions, so before we will end the sections. So for the sake of weekend, we are still in time. So please feel free to address questions for our speakers. If there are specific queries from the audience. Yes, please. Can you have there a microphone? How does it work?
Thank you very much. My question is to the, floor. Whoever would like to answer to this is welcome. Today we talked about threats and external influences in the Balkans. At the same time, the Balkans requires foreign investments. So when it comes to actors outside the Western world, there is this debate of economic influence and disruption, even being malicious or malignant, comes into the discussion. So what are your takes about these non-Western investors and their economic and other impacts in the Western Balkans?
Well, first, thank you very much for the question, because it's important, and foreign direct investment is definitely the driver of growth for many economies of the Western Balkans. How I see the situation, since we're living in the world of trade decoupling, and I wouldn't say deglobalization, but we're moving away from globalization towards something that is called reshoring, nearshoring, friendshoring, which Anna mentioned briefly, and I thank her for that. I see a great potential of that for the Western Balkan economies, and in particular for manufacturing-based economies, and that's Serbia, North Macedonia, and Kosovo. But I think that in order for this nearshoring trends to actually be grasped, the benefits to be grasped by the Western Balkan region, I think policymakers have a long way ahead. So there is a competitive edge of the Western Balkans. It's first of all closer to multinational, European multinational corporations, so there is a geographic benefit. Also there are cost benefits because wages are lower in the Western Balkans than in the EU, so the production costs are lower. But human capital is really an issue in the Western Balkans. As you know, the region suffers much from the brain. Each individual Western Balkan economy is actually experiencing depopulation. So I think there is a multifaceted approach when it comes to attracting further foreign direct investment, and much of the policies have to improve the human capital, the innovation ecosystem, the technologies, and also the finances, in particular for small, medium enterprises that are dominating the economy and growth, but need external sources of finance to drive through. So that's my answer.
Okay, if anyone wants to add.
I would like to add as well something connected with the capacity to invest in the region. And it's very important to look on few things. First of all, in the region, it's really important to have the focus on key area, being able to absorb this type of investment. So being digital, having the key organization prepared to bring the investment. So this is one focus and depends on the way how we are having authorities, the government, the relation, as Mr. Koldia was mentioning and highlighting how our authorities are working. The second thing is our capacity of absorbing the EU funds, because when we are looking further, there are a lot of EU funds focused exactly for this type of area: sustainability, renewable energy, digitization. So basically, these are the key areas. Definitely, they are coming with automation, and then we are having the people capabilities focused on further investment. So there are the investments that are coming because the organizations are looking forward and they are making the assessment. And I can give some example that I've seen in few of the countries. It's important to focus on these key pillars to attract the investment. First of all, to be prepared, and when we are saying to be prepared, to be digital, to be open, and to have the attractivity. The second one, being open, is to have the capability of absorbing the EU funds. And when I'm speaking about EU funds, I'm not speaking only about the funding for well-being, for internal agrotourism or things like that. It's so important to focus on the R&D and all these type of things. And then the investments are coming. And the companies, the big companies who knows very well the structure, they are continuing, they are making the plan, they are making the strategy, and they are keeping. And the last one, I want to say that the big companies are building a strong leadership position in the region exactly to be able to have the growth. Thank you very much.
From a security perspective, I think that two aspects has to be taken into consideration. First aspect, these entities, economic entities, do not be under any sanctions against NATO and EU, and the second, to not pose any threat to the national security interest. We are speaking about here, I put in my presentation a little bit about 5G. The region make its own arrangements to be close with the Euro-Atlantic standards rather than be with others in this respect. So, investments are more than welcome, but as always, but these two conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, please.
Two questions, please, to Mr. Masimescu. You showed the map where the exploitation field lies. Do you want to say anything about the risk analysis, since it's that close to the ongoing war zone? And the second question, you were talking about exploitation as of 2027, but then you also mentioned the possibility to use this for hydrogen production. Is there already some sort of a timeline as of when then hydrogen could be a possibility use of what you want to exploit there? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, challenging times in the Black Sea, and especially from a security perspective. Nevertheless, we, OMV Petrom, are very confident in the prospects of Neptun Deep, even if it is close to a crisis/war region. We are working in a very close with Romanian authorities, with all security agencies in Romania, in order to make sure that our investments are protected and we take all the necessary precautionary measures in order to safeguard them. When I spoke about first molecule reaching the national transport system of Romania, I said 2027. So this means that we expect that the first production from Neptun Deep will reach the shores in 2027. This means that by that time, once FID is taken, we are entering into the development phase of the project, and then starting with 2027, we are entering the production phase. To your last, very short comment to your last question regarding hydrogen, we are looking at different models on how we can increase the value chain of gas. One of them is, of course, hydrogen. We started already a first project on green hydrogen in our refinery, and we are looking at hydrogen that can be produced from natural gas. There is no final decision taken at the moment. Nevertheless, all technologies that bring with it lower emissions are very close to our portfolio for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions, please? If not, may I ask one as a final? Given that we heard here, and it is well known that any crisis may create new opportunities, I would like to ask Ms. Anna Dumitrache, speaking about the field of logistics, which are the opportunities in the field of logistics, particularly in Balkans and in this context?
Thank you. I was also noticing Mr. Kolda's slide with the opportunities. You know, the famous saying that if life gives you lemon, you do a lemonade instead of complaining. It became super famous, this one, but it's very true. So as I was saying, and I always give this example, Romania has one of the highest internet speeds in the world. So if we travel outside, if you go to Germany, for instance, you get frustrated because it's not working that fast as we are used to. And it's not because we are super smart, But we have actually implemented it very late in the process, and then we benefited of the latest technology for that. So I think it's a super example of our opportunities here, not only in the logistics, and I'm glad you mentioned all the security, because we do a lot of business with non-EU countries, and we feel the need that we are secure, that it's all, you know, it's governed, and we make sure that there's no sanctions, and we're trying also to do a very good risk management here, because trade is sometimes the entry gate for many things, good and bad. So we need to be very, very cautious. But coming back to the opportunities, there's one thing I didn't get the chance to mention, and also not the previous speakers and from the business side, that Balkans are a very important region, and we learned that from our clients, because we have many multinational companies that have established in Romania their distribution centers in the southern Romania especially, but also in the region of Timișoara, to service the whole Balkans initially. And then they have just found out that they can do so also for Turkey, for Cyprus, for the Middle East. And I think this is a huge opportunity for the Balkans region, generally speaking, for Romania in particular, because we are here. For Bucharest and Timișoara, again, in particular, and going into the granularity of our business as well, that under the European umbrella, under governance, under security, well managed, companies and traders can do good governance business from here towards other regions of the world which don't offer the same security from political and economical points of view, but also in physical security, and speaking also of the criminality rate and so on, because also businesses need to be run by people, and in order to get the best people, you need to establish your business in good cities and in good parts of the world, because good people are not coming otherwise. So these companies have been discovering throughout the last couple of years. This is a very new trend. It's something we see very, very recently. It's within the last couple of years they discovered the region. They say, oh, wow, but I can send my goods to Turkey from here. Wow, this is indeed something. Last but not least, in this context, I think there's also a very important Schengen discussion we are having, which again is linked to security and with the overall European spread, and also integrating the rest of the Balkan countries in the Union and so on. I'm not good at politics, so I don't know. We are doing business, that's our specialty, so I decline my competence. But I think it's a huge opportunity, and it needs to be backed by security and well-managed risks in order to be able to exploit it. Actually, because business people have seen it already, but they just need to feel secure here, and then it will only boost our potential.
Okay then, if no more questions are available, I think we can stop here our section, as well as we are at the end of the conference, therefore just a small time for final conclusions. The West University of Timișoara wish to express many thanks to its partner, New Strategy Center, for the outstanding collaborations. Of course, the topics discussed today benefited from high-quality interventions from all speakers, guests, and participants. And I once again express my thanks for the availability for speakers from this panel. And last but not least, this event was made possible with the support of our partners, and I will mention them in alphabetical order. Therefore, we want to express thanks to BCR, CTP, Eviden, Flex, Nokia, and OMV Petrom. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a nice weekend.